Hi, my name is Nicole Cercelli, and today I will be presenting on the Okinawa Diet. Some background on the Okinawa Diet. I found a lot of information. This diet is named after the region of Okinawa, which is located in the Ryukyu Islands off the coast of Japan. Okinawa is part of the Blue Zone, and what the Blue Zone is, it's a type of region, and in these regions, these people are known to live longer, healthier lives compared to the rest of the world. The people of Okinawa have long life expectancies, and there are many centenarians there, which are people who live to 100 years and older. They also have low risks of age-associated diseases. So that is, as you get older, some diseases may happen. Well, they don't usually get these types of diseases that are associated with aging. They have healthy lifestyles, and they also eat low in calorie foods that are nutritionally dense. A big part of the Okinawa diet is eating less calories, and that's what these people do. And the Okinawa diet is also like a lot of other diets, such as the traditional Mediterranean diet and the modern DASH diet. DASH just stands for Dietary Approach to Stop Hypertension. And in this figure that I have here, it's a chart of the foods that they primarily eat on the Okinawa diet, and I'll go into more detail with that coming up. But I just thought that this was interesting. So it says Okinawa, Japan, how Okinawan centenarians ate for most of their lives. And so as you can see, the diet is a lot of sweet potatoes. 67% of the diet is made up of sweet potatoes, 12% rice, 9% other vegetables, 6% legumes, 3% other grains, 2% fish, meat, and poultry, and 1% other foods. So sweet potatoes are a lot of the diet and make up a large part of it, as you can see, and they have a lot of benefits, which I will go into in the next slides. So to continue with background, obviously, this is the typical diet of the region of Okinawa, and more on the diet. The traditional Okinawan diet is heavy on fruits and vegetables, light on meat, refined grains, saturated fat, sugar, salt, and full-fat dairy. So it's primarily fruits and vegetables, and they really don't eat a lot of the other types of foods that were listed. So specifically, the vegetables that they eat are root vegetables, which are sweet potatoes, as I said, is a huge part, green and yellow vegetables, soybean-based foods, and medicinal plants. They also have legumes, mostly soybeans, as I said, seaweed, herbs and spices, small amounts of fish, and mushrooms, specifically shiitake mushrooms. So something that I found interesting from the articles that I was reading here, their life expectancy for women in Okinawa is 87 years old, which is according to the World Health Organization, and this island nation has the highest number of centenarians, which I said is people living to 100 and older. And I just think it's really interesting that 87 years is a long life expectancy, because that is a lot more than we have here in the United States and a lot more than in other countries as well. Because in the United States, the life expectancy for women as of 2020 is 81.1 years. So this article was posted 5 years ago now, but still it's about 6 years higher than the life expectancy here in the United States, which 6 years is a lot more. And I just was looking up now just so I can give you guys more numbers. As of 2019, so a year ago almost, the life expectancy for Japan was still 87. It was 87.32 years to be exact, which is the highest figures ever recorded. And in the United States, the average life expectancy for this is for men and women is 78, 79 years old. And obviously, women have a longer life expectancy in the United States and in Japan as well. But the average life expectancy in Japan was 81.25 years for men. So there are differences in the numbers for men and women, but overall, Japan still does have higher life expectancies. There is a popular saying in Okinawa, which is hara hachi bu. In Japanese, that means you should eat until you are 80% full. And I just think that this is really interesting because I feel that in the United States, we don't really have this mentality, and I've never heard anything like this. So I think that it's interesting because if people would just stop eating when they're full or just think about this 80% aspect, then people probably wouldn't be as overweight and they would end up consuming less calories. And eating less calories is a main part in this type of diet. So I just think that this is interesting to hear. So this figure here that I have is a picture of a sweet potato because the sweet potatoes are very important in one's diet if they try the Okinawa diet. And so some background on a sweet potato, it is the staple of this diet, and the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, and the Center for Science in the Public Interest all say that it's helpful in the prevention of chronic diseases. And they even rank the sweet potato as the most nutritious of all vegetables because of its dietary fiber, naturally occurring sugars, protein content, vitamins A and C, potassium, iron, and calcium. And it also is really low in fat and sodium and cholesterol. And so this picture here, which I think it gives you a good representation of what it provides as in terms of nutrients. So this says here that if you have eat 1,000 calories of a sweet potato, in those 1,000 calories, it gives you 36.7 grams of fiber, which is 150% of your daily requirements, 422 milligrams of calcium, which is 42% of your daily requirements, 300 milligrams of magnesium, which is 75%, 5,277 milligrams of potassium, which is 150%, vitamin C, 218 milligrams, which is 360% of daily requirements, vitamin B6, 3.2 milligrams, 159% of your daily requirements, and vitamin A, which is 213,512 IU, which is just means international units, which is used when measuring and weighing certain vitamins, and that would be 4,270% of daily requirements. So as you can see, just 1,000 calories of it packs a lot of nutrition and different components that are all essential to your diet. And sweet potatoes obviously are not that large, so I think it's really interesting how much just something so small could provide for you. And as you could see, it's really rich in vitamin A and C, giving you a lot of daily value. And so I just think this little blurb under here is interesting that if half of your diet was solely baked sweet potatoes with no salt, you would get all of the nutrients shown above. And this figure here was from the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture. And this picture here that I have is of the food pyramid that represents the food on the Okinawa diet. And obviously, it's sort of similar to like the My Plate that we use here, but they don't use My Plate in Okinawa, but it's just you can compare it to that. So obviously, the bottom is what is consumed the most, and then the top of it is what is consumed the least. So as I was saying earlier, Vegetables and fruits are the main part of the diet, and that is consumed the most. And then second is legumes, which are like the soybean products. And then low GI grains in the middle. Fish and lean meats closer to the top because they don't have that much of that. And then oils, condiments, herbs, and spices. And then obviously sweets are at the very top because they really don't eat any of that. None of the Okinawa diet lists sweets in there. They never mention any of that being consumed. And so, as you can see, there's some other factors also. They have daily sandpin tea, which is basically jasmine tea, because, like I said, they do have some herbs and spices and medicinal, like teas and things like that, but not too much because it's closer to the top. And then they do some daily physical activity, but also it's not totally central and focused on that because that is equal with the tea and the fish and lean meats. So they don't do a ton of physical activity, but they do some, which would just be like their work that they do because they usually do manual labor and things like that. But exercise is not a huge part of this diet. And then up at the top, along with sweets, is alcohol in moderation. So they don't really drink any alcohol or a lot of it during this diet. And then lastly here I have this chart, which is the macronutrient breakdown. It breaks down, explains how much of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are in the diet, which obviously those are the three macronutrients that are essential in diets. And so as you can see, the Okinawa diet obviously has changed a bit over the years. It started in 1975. Around then they've been doing like research on it. And so it has changed a lot from then to now because they had more of an original type that they would follow, and now they made it more modern and they've added different things into it because the diet can be modified. So as you could see, carbs, at first the diet had a lot of carbs. 85% of it was carbs, and then only 9% was protein and 6% was fat, and that's including 2% of saturated fat. So it really wasn't distributed evenly because carbs were the main part of it and proteins and fats were really not a lot of it. But now the modern one, it's distributed a bit better and there's more fats than there were, a lot more. And the carbs are less now, but carbs are still the main part of the diet and still make up most of it. So 58% is carbs now, 15% protein, 28% fat, which is 7% of saturated fat included in there. So the fats, I would say, significantly increased, proteins a little bit, and then the carbs actually decreased, but that's still the main part of the diet. So I just think it's interesting seeing how it has changed from then until now. And it's good to know how much of these macronutrients that you're getting in your diet. So for the arguments and viewpoints and evidence that supports the Okinawa diet, one of the things that it talked about a lot was cognitive decline as you age. So obviously, cognitive decline is associated with the aging process. As you get older, your cognitive abilities tend to decrease and decline. Just happens with aging, but certain diets that I've found could actually decrease, could actually So certain diets could actually reduce or slow down cognitive decline. So if you eat certain things or have a certain lifestyle, then as you age, cognitive decline may not happen. But cognitive decline can occur for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of reasons, but the ones that I just mentioned were genetics, health status, biological processes, neurochemical changes, and lifestyle and diet. And so, as I was saying, certain ones can reduce your rate of cognitive decline, and one of them is the Okinawa diet, obviously. which is known for healthy aging. So this article that I read here was a study. It was a 36-year prospective study, and it was on middle-aged men who were Japanese American. It was conducted in Honolulu, Hawaii, and this study was the first study to show that reduced calorie intake may actually lead to a longer life. And so, as I said, the Okinawa diet, a main part is just consuming fewer calories. And a lot of Okinawans do eat less calories in general. And so, this study found that risk for death, all-cause mortality, was lower in men who ate fewer calories, was most pronounced at about 1,900 calories per day, or about 15% fewer calories than the group average. The lower risk for death persisted until participants ate about 50% fewer calories than the group average. So what this means is that the men who ate fewer calories, had a lower risk for death. And it was even more pronounced if they ate 1,900 calories a day, which is also 15% fewer calories than the group average. And then the risk for death was even lower if they ate 50% fewer calories. And so the reason why this study is so important is because it aligns with other cross-sectional studies of Okinawans that show that they do indeed eat fewer calories, and then they also have exceptionally long lifespans and one of the longest survival rates in the world. And this study is also important because of increasing obesity in the United States. And what's really popular in the United States is fad dieting and unhealthy diets, which are also trendy diets that people see online through social media and things like that. These diets are so popular because they offer quick weight loss solutions, and because you lose weight so quickly because you're only eating certain foods and avoiding others. And so you eat all of these foods, and then you don't eat these other foods. And then once you just go off of that diet and start eating normally again, or eating these other foods, then you will gain weight and just gain weight quicker. And so that's why you shouldn't do these kinds of diets, because they're unhealthy and don't offer long-term weight loss and keeping that weight off. It's just a quick fix right now, but a lot of people want to do things like that. So, however, simply just eating fewer calories does obviously lead to weight loss and may influence your longevity compared to other dietary factors they found. So, just by eating less, it would make you live longer, and they compared it to other dietary factors and they found that just eating less was the best option. So even when they compared it to carbohydrate, protein, and fat intake, they also compared it to physical activity and obviously other factors, but they just found that eating fewer calories was the best option to do. And so the researcher of this study, Wilcox, his research on caloric density, which is the number of calories per gram of food, he talks about this a lot in his new book that he just released called the Okinawa Diet Plan. He says that both low-fat and low-carb diets are different paths to eating fewer calories. And then when you consume these in excess, both fat and carbohydrates lead to really serious health consequences. And so if you would just eat less fat and less carbs, it would also mean that you're eating less in general and then less calories. And so this article also talks a bit about healthy aging, which I said earlier, and says that the Okinawa diet does definitely support healthy aging and is a factor in aging more healthy. And so another quote from the article, Wilcox's work represents a significant step in confirming what many scientists had suspected, that eating fewer calories may be linked to human longevity, and it affirms PHRI's commitment to promoting the health of Americans through evidence-based, high-impact research on healthy aging. The PHRI is the Pacific Health Research Institute, which is who did this study also. And the person who said this was Kerb, who is the president and CEO of this Health Research Institute. So another article that I was reading, it obviously, since vegetables are a large part of this diet, it is 90% plant-based. So that's most of the diet. And another thing that I found really interesting is that Okinawans are really have fewer diseases than we have here in the United States, and their chances and risks of getting these diseases are way less than we have here, and the numbers are just really significant. So people who eat this way, meaning eat plant-based in the Okinawa diet, they don't only live the longest, but they're also extremely healthy into old age. So there are 6 to 12 times fewer heart disease deaths than the United States, 2 to 3 times fewer colon cancer deaths than the United States, 7 times fewer prostate cancer deaths than the United States, and 5.5 times lower risk of dying from breast cancer than the United States. So these numbers are really big, and I feel that these diseases here and dying from these certain cancers and heart disease, I feel like they're all really prominent here in the United States, and there's a lot of diseases associated with them, and often people die from them. But here, there in Okinawa, they don't have these diseases, and they have a lot less of a chance of developing them. So, factors and forces of the Okinawa diet is that it came around post-war times because food was scarce, rationed, and there were even famines. So obviously it makes sense that they would eat less calories because food was limited and it was given out in certain portions, and then sometimes there was no food at all. And people in Okinawa are also less likely to smoke than other populations, and they do physical activity because they work in agriculture and fishing. So you're always standing up, always walking, lifting, doing physical things like that. And I feel that in the United States, that's not really all of our jobs here. A lot of jobs, you just sit for a lot of the time and you're at a desk for almost the whole day. So we have like very sedentary lifestyles here compared to there. And they also live in close communities with each other, and they have a good social life into old age, which I think is really important because in the United States, I also feel that as people grow older, obviously, people around them aren't around anymore, or they lose people that they're close to and lose their loved ones. But in Japan, they still have this social life as they get older, and they are still connected to others. And so you could see how important that is because it says that social connection has been shown to improve health and longevity by reducing the body's stress responses to challenging events. Loneliness, in contrast, has been shown to be as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So I think that's something really interesting. I never knew that loneliness could have that kind of effect on somebody. So I think it just shows you how just having a good social life and being connected to others can also improve your lifespan. Some more factors and forces that contribute to this diet and the reason why these people live so long are genetics. Genetics are a big factor in the Okinawans living so long. So they're an isolated population, and so their genes are different and unique compared to other populations. A lot isn't known about their genes and the certain genomes that they have, but they do know that they have these two kinds of gene variants. And so the first one is the APOE4 gene, which increases risk of heart disease and Alzheimer's, but they have a variant of it, which the prevalence of getting these diseases is reduced. And they also have the FOXO3 gene, which regulates metabolism and cell growth, and they have the protective variant of it, which reduces age-related diseases and cancers. And an article that I read supports this by explaining that isolated populations develop extreme phenotypes from genetic drift, which could explain why they live so long, and that these unique genes are part of the reason why. The NCBI just is the National Center for Biotechnology Information, and I think that this shows you how important genetic influence can be and how some people are predisposed to other things or not. So, steps for action going forward, there really aren't any ethical considerations for doing this diet, but there are some cons. Two of them are restrictive and it's high in sodium. So, obviously, it's restrictive because there isn't a lot of red meat, poultry, or eggs. And there's really not a lot of whole grains or grains in general or dairy either. But it does have soy and fish, so you do get protein from that. But and the food that is offered does give you enough nutrition, but it can be difficult to follow such a restrictive diet and you may not be able to stick to it. And also high in sodium, if you are on a sodium restricted diet, you might want to ask your doctor before trying it because eating some of the foods may increase your sodium levels. So the USDA talks about food groups and calories with this diet, and the My Plate guidelines would support this diet about eating nutrient dense vegetables, but they also obviously want people to consume in moderation meat or fish, low fat dairy products, and whole grains. And these are all rare on the Okinawa diet. And also with calories, there's not any particular calorie count associated with it, but it's mostly low calorie foods and they eat less calories on this diet. For general nutrition, it's really high in antioxidants and has a lot of anti-inflammatory components, but it doesn't have enough meat, dairy, and grains, which can give you important nutrients. Something that's good about it is that it's very flexible. The diet can be modified to fit every individual, but in terms of sustainability, since only certain foods are allowed, it could be difficult to stick to for a long time. And so before trying, it could be best to speak to a doctor or nutritionist to find the best diet or which foods you should be eating based on your needs. So just to conclude, obviously, as with every diet, it's important to do extensive research and make sure that you're getting credible information. You could check with your doctor, nutritionist, or a dietitian. The Okinawa diet can be altered for every person and made to fit anyone's lifestyle. It may also lead to a longer and healthier life and decrease age-associated diseases, cancers, and heart disease. And so the main part of it is that they eat less calories and it could increase lifespan as Okinawa has the most centenarians out of anyone. So if you're looking to increase your lifespan, then the Okinawa diet may be for you. Here are my references. And that's it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.